Hi everyone, I'm Zac Greenberg, co-founder of Musicians for Health. And we're honored to have with us today Dr. Leming, co-founder of Cincinnati Cancer Advisors and Arch's Boogie Woogie piano stage. Two seemingly very different things. Could you tell us a little bit about your background, Dr. Leming?
I'm a medical oncologist. I grew up over in northern Kentucky and I wandered around in my education, eventually getting to the National Cancer Institute. And my mother was a teacher and a music teacher, so I had a lot of exposure to all sorts of music and education growing up. And currently I'm in a group called Cincinnati Cancer Advisors that we just started this year, performing independent second opinion oncology consultations for patients in the tri-state.
And can you tell us a little bit about the Arch's Boogie Woogie stage and how that all kind of came to be?
Well, in approximately 1991, I because of my music background and piano work, I thought that blues music was fascinating. And I had an opportunity to run into Big Joe Duskin, who was a iconic boogie piano player and world renowned, who happened to be here in Cincinnati. And ran into him at a blues meeting that I went to, and I was wanting to learn boogie piano, but I didn't have anybody that I knew that could teach it. I ran into him at a meeting at Mansion Hill Tavern, and I didn't know who he was, and was there with a group of hardcore blues people, and at the meeting sat and looked over at Big Joe Duskin, who was 300 plus pounds, large fella, and asked him, I said, well, what do you do? And everybody in the room stopped, and everybody quit talking, and he looked at me like, who is this that doesn't know who Big Joe Duskin is? And we struck up a conversation, and I asked if would he be interested in being able to teach some boogie piano, and in his kind of style, he goes, well, Doc, I'll learn you. And he wrote his number down on a napkin and handed it to me, and we started from there. And from that point, he was at my house every weekend, and my kids grew up with Big Joe as part of the family, and became pretty quickly, I could tell that there wasn't much attention to acoustic piano blues. And around that time, the Greater Cincinnati Blues Society started the Blues Festival, and in 1992, we, myself and Dr. Cody, my medical partner in oncology, we started sponsored the first gathering of boogie piano held in the ballroom near the Symphony downtown. And from that point, we moved to Sawyer Point for their festival every year under a old railroad bridge, and named the stage that we started the Arch's Boogie Piano Stage. And we started making connections around the world, and with Big Joe's help and another musician, Ann Rabson, who's died a few years ago, and another person, Tom Dooley, here in town, who was a iconic piano player many years ago. And they helped me around the music world, open doors. And after a few years, people realized that I wasn't in it for just making a stage, and we started collecting people to come to Cincinnati to represent the world of boogie piano. And 28 years later, we have been had some of the most famous players in the world, and have our mission being to bring the old masters and the young people together. And we've spawned multiple festivals over Europe, and we've had players as far away from as Russia. And our Arches Piano Stage is considered the iconic stage in the United States for boogie and blues piano. So it's been our contribution to the music world, and one of our missions is always to seek out a very young talent in the world and bring them together with the old masters, and with a way to propagate the art.
Yeah, it's such an important part of the art, this passing on the oral history of it. It's so beautiful. Did you ever have ambitions of being a musician yourself? I was saying you were growing up in a musical family in that world. Was that ever a path that was?
Well, I played 5-string banjo and guitar when I was younger, and I was somewhat forced to learn piano and organ and saxophone, clarinet, harp.
Wow.
And then I'll just kind of put all that to the side as I went into the medical space and learning, and actually never got back into the piano space until my 2 daughters were younger. And I said, one of the only demands I have is you're going to take piano.
Yeah.
And in order to get them to do it, I decided I will go back and take with you. And so I played in every recital they played in until they all graduated from high school. And in that time frame, I worked with Big Joe Duskin and at the piano every week. And I would say we got pretty good at it, but nowhere near the extraordinary talent of the musicians we have. We also have Cincinnati as the Hall of Fame for boogie piano for the world, that we've started a number of years ago, and have continued. Both many people that have now passed on, and very famous musicians around the world that have been inducted into the Hall of Fame. Is there
a link to that we could attach to the bottom of this after for people to check out?
Well, the Hall of Fame, it's I think in the Cincinnati Blues Society's website, it'll be there. We've actually done a pretty terrible job at marketing and putting this up on the web like we should.
Yeah.
Our effort's been mostly in the people and the music, but where we're at now is I think trying to actually move it into a longer standing thing for Cincinnati, and in a different moving forward, I think.
Yeah, it's really interesting to have that in Cincinnati, because I think a lot of people that don't have connections to Cincinnati don't think of it as this really historic arts and music hub. But it's been such an important city for jazz and blues and funk and all of these different musics, because many people forget about King Records and how influential that was in the development of the music industry.
Well, absolutely. Cincinnati has a just huge amount of enormous music talent, and it doesn't get emphasized as much. It's almost taken for granted, but pretty much anywhere, any night, you're going to find great music in Cincinnati.
Yeah, and again, people, not students, when I was graduating and when I was looking at schools, CCM as a jazz musician was always top on the list, and obviously for its musical theater department. But I think if you're not in that upper echelon of education and study and stuff, that Cincinnati can get forgotten about. And I think it's been doing a really good job of doing things like this blues festival and like having Blink in these new festivals to really harbor all of this huge community that's there and start to be able to elevate it onto this national stage that it's so deserving of.
I agree.
I also know from talking to you earlier and reading your bio that you practice martial arts. Could you talk a little bit about that experience and how that's affected your growth?
Well, I started off as a, a kid doing karate. And then again, as you know, I went into the medical world, I sort of put everything to the side. And a long number of years ago, I came back in a softer way with a master teacher in the martial art version of Tai Chi, and have continued that for at least the last 15, 20 years or so. Martial arts, medicine, and music all are very similar. They have a very similar theme in that one of the basics of whether you're a martial artist, a musician, or a master physician is the difference between the beginner and the master is that the master does the basics correctly every single time.
Yeah, repetition.
And so there's just a very significant overlap between the essence of music, medicine, and martial arts that complement each other. And whether you're in all of these or part of those, you can get together and talk music, and a music person can talk with somebody in martial arts, and that you basically have the same kind of feeling. The same way with medicine. If you're really into the essence of what medicine is, about humans and what a human truly is, the characteristics overlap all of those disciplines.
Yeah, I know I find myself as a composer and bass player and guitar player, but also a blue belt in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have, all these other facets that many millennials have, and it can seem very abstract and obscure, but it's really interesting, maybe because I started so young trying to devote myself to music and daily practice, that there's so much overlap and that everything's so complementary. And as I grow and advance as a martial artist, seeing how much my composition flourishes and how much my time and rhythm and sense of melody, all of it is so. I also grew up riding motorcycles and skiing, and it really just this sense of flow and engagement has always been so important to my development.
Yeah, timing, music, rhythm, balance. When you really think about it, all this goes back to pretty ancient times. When you think of Greek times and writings about ancient civilizations, and these are all things that were emphasized.
Mm-hmm.
Part of a complete human, and somehow I think in some of the modern world we sort of got busy and forgot it. But that may be some of the advantages of the COVID time. It's making people kind of think back to things that are eternal and haven't changed over a long time, that really make you a complete human.
Yeah, finding time, it's so difficult in our society sometimes to find time and space. It's so precious to us, and really it's impossible to make a lot of these steps without being able to have time and space to give security to letting that happen.
Well, and music and the mind, is really a connection, is whether you're talking classical music or blues, and the meditation effect of martial arts. It's hard to grasp it all, but it has a similar theme, and it has a calming effect, a steadying effect, an eternal kind of balance that you get by participating in one or all of those, and I think it's important.
Yeah, for me, one of my kind of nerdy hobbies is reading old samurai scrolls and Zen scrolls. And one of my favorite ones is The Unfettered Mind. And it's between a master swordsman and a Zen master writing letters to each other. And all of my young improvisational jazz students, it's kind of required reading for them. And at first, especially when they're younger, it can seem a little abstract, but the concepts that they talk about of flow and disengagement to allow you to not have stopping and pausing, this concept that they talk about through meditation and martial arts is, to me, so essential to be an improvisational musician, which is so interesting.
No, it is, and people have written about it for years, and you're right. In the medical world, there was a famous physician, Sir William Osler, and one of his quotes was, "To be successful, you wanted to read the old books and the new papers," and that's kind of what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Leming, thank you so much for your time and for being here. This was an amazing conversation about just these abstract relationships of art and medicine that are seemingly so important, but so abstract in ways that they can easily be looked over. So thank you so much for your thoughts and your time.
Oh, thanks, Zac, for putting this together. It's, I think, bringing various people together around music. It's a wonderful time to do this. I think there's a lot of opportunity for more in-depth thinking and feeling in these Zoom meetings and video things. Actually, in some ways, are very powerful and actually give people more of an insight than they do on day-to-day ways we used to do things. So, congratulations on your project, and I think we're all fans.
Thank you again so much, Dr. Leming. I'm really looking forward to going to see some music when this is all over and practicing some Tai Chi together.
Oh, you too. Take care, Zac.